There are people who grow up learning to hold their voice the way others hold their breath, quietly, carefully, as if sound itself might shatter something fragile around them. They move through the world with conversations rehearsed in their mind, but never released. They speak in edited versions of themselves, trimmed down, softened, made harmless, and most people never notice. They only see the calm surface, not the tension holding it in place. This is the lifelong effect of never feeling safe to speak up. It doesn't begin loudly. It begins in a whisper. You can often recognize these people by the way they pause before answering, as if checking invisible permissions. By the way they apologize before sharing even the simplest opinion. By the way their bodies send the message their lips don't. A small pull of the shoulders, a slight shrinking of posture, a glance downward that says, "Is it okay to exist here?" For them, silence is not peace. Silence is self-protection. They learned early that speaking carries consequences, not always dramatic ones. Sometimes it was just the sharp tone of a parent, the dismissive sigh of someone they trusted, the quiet, emotional storm that followed a single honest sentence. Over time, they understood something. Their truth wasn't welcome. Their feelings weren't convenient. Their voice wasn't safe, so they adapted, the way children always do, not by challenging their environment, but by reshaping themselves to survive it. The origins are often subtle. A childhood home where emotions were too heavy for the adults to handle. A family that valued obedience more than connection. Places where anger was loud, but love was quiet. Where boundaries were unclear and vulnerability carried a price. Sometimes it wasn't even cruelty. It was unpredictability. One day a parent listens. The next day they explode. The inconsistency teaches a deeper lesson than any punishment could. Or maybe the environment was emotionally barren. No anger, no warmth, just absence. A child growing in emotional emptiness learns to mute themselves, not because they fear being hurt, but because they expect not to matter. These early dynamics write scripts that echo across decades. It's not the moment of silence that shapes a person, it's the pattern. A pattern they never chose, yet learned to follow perfectly. Psychology has a name for this experience: suppression of authentic expression. When someone repeatedly learns that speaking up leads to danger, conflict, or dismissal, the brain adapts. The nervous system develops a hypervigilance around communication. It scans for tone, facial expressions, emotional shifts. It anticipates threat long before any words are spoken. Neuroscientists describe this as an overactive survival response, a body that reacts to conversation the way others react to physical danger. The amygdala fires quickly, the heart rate rises, thoughts become foggy, words disappear. Not because the person lacks intelligence or confidence, but because their system was trained to prioritize harmony over honesty. Attachment theory explains that children mirror the emotional climate of their caretakers. If their caregivers became distant, angry, or overwhelmed when confronted with a child's feelings, the child learned to silence themselves as a way to maintain connection. In adulthood, this becomes second nature. Speaking up feels unsafe even when no danger exists. The body remembers what the mind tries to outgrow. They might know logically that a friend or partner will not explode, but logic is quiet. Survival memory is loud. Inside there is a conflict that never fully rests. Part of them wants to speak, wants to share, express, take up space, breathe fully, but another part pulls back. A familiar, obedient reflex that whispers, "Stay small." They replay conversations long after they end. They rewrite the sentences they wish they said. They question their tone, their timing, their impact. They worry about being misunderstood. They fear being too much or too little. They fear being the reason someone else feels discomfort, so they swallow their reactions. They say it's fine even when it isn't. They laugh off comments that sting. They agree to plans they don't want. They forgive things that still hurt. They silence themselves to maintain peace, while quietly losing pieces of themselves. And the world rewards them for this. People call them easygoing, understanding, low maintenance. They don't see the emotional effort behind that calm exterior. They don't see the longing beneath the compliance. They don't see the absence of safety that shaped this personality. The realization often arrives slowly. Sometimes it happens during a conversation where they finally speak up and nothing bad happens. The world does not collapse. The other person listens, and there is a quiet shock in their body, a disbelief, a question, a new possibility. Or it arrives when they meet people who make space for their words, people who don't rush or interrupt, people who treat their thoughts as something valuable rather than something inconvenient. For the first time, they feel what safety sounds like, how it softens the voice and how it steadies the breath, how it allows words to form without trembling. Then there are the moments, small but transformative, when silence begins to feel like a heavier burden than expression. When hiding their feelings hurts more than risking them. When the exhaustion of being understated becomes undeniable. These moments do not erase the past, but they open a door that was always there but never felt possible to walk through. Healing does not mean becoming loud. It does not mean speaking often. It simply means speaking freely. For people who never felt safe to voice themselves, healing is the gentle practice of noticing their truth before minimizing it, letting a feeling exist without immediately pushing it aside, allowing discomfort to rise without assuming it means danger. It's slow work, quiet work, the kind that happens in small decisions, choosing to say, "I disagree," even with a shaking voice. Choosing to clarify instead of pretending to understand. Choosing to express disappointment without apologizing for it. Choosing to trust that emotions are not threats. Choosing to believe that honesty can coexist with love. And as this unfolds, something unexpected happens. Their relationships change. Some become deeper, more authentic, more stable. Others fall away, revealing they were held together by silence, not connection. But the most meaningful shift doesn't happen between people. It happens within the person who finally learns that their voice is not a danger, but a presence, a rightful one. The body begins to unlearn its old alarms. The nervous system discovers calmer rhythms. Words flow with less resistance. And the world feels less like a place to tiptoe through and more like a place to live in. There is a kind of freedom that arrives quietly, not with celebration, but with recognition. The recognition that silence was once a survival strategy, but it doesn't have to be a lifelong identity. Some people spend years believing they are naturally quiet, when in truth, they are simply wounded in a quiet way. And when they finally find space to speak, when safety grows in small, steady moments, their voice doesn't demand attention. It simply takes its place, soft, certain, present. The lifelong effect of never feeling safe to speak up is not that a person loses their voice. It's that they forget it was ever allowed. But the moment safety returns, even in the smallest measure, the voice remembers. The body remembers. The self remembers. And in that remembering, something long silent finally breathes.